Hello, this is Tanya with Sober on Purpose podcast. And wow, we are flying with a little bit of no net right now. So I just talked to a really wonderful person for the Blessed Family Recovery Summit, and he said, you don't have to get it right. You just have to get it going. So we are getting it going this morning. We've added a bunch of channels, and here we are with what does sober mean? So I tossed this question out. I hope this is showing up. I tossed this question out this week and got a lot of really fantastic answers, because what does sober mean is a question that we might need to answer for ourselves, and as we're looking at supporting loved ones who are struggling with addictive behaviors. So what does sober mean? Let me read you some of the things that I got from asking that question in the Facebook group. So this is all down there. We asked, what does sober mean to you in your recovery journey? And in supporting somebody else. So we've got rational, we've got that the entire house is sober, we've got abstaining from mind-altering substances, behavior that's orderly, and that it's a spiritual and physical. It's part spiritual and part physical. Once you do it yourself, you can advocate for somebody else. We've also got that we've got some biblical structure around it, that you are responsible for others, and that you are responsible for your community and for providing a base for living that is acceptable. So that's all in there. We also have sobriety means it's an answer to prayer. It's freedom. It's an answer to prayer. And then there was a question of, are we asking about being sober or living in sobriety? So let's take a look at that as well. Are we talking about being sober or living in sobriety? Let's look at the classic definition. So our classic definition is sober means not being under the influence, not being under the influence of drugs or alcohol, clear-headed, calm, rational. That's what we say sober means. We've kind of pegged it into this small little hole of sober means not being under the influence of drugs or alcohol. But let's expand that a little bit. So biblically, sober is to be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking who he may devour. So if you are mood altering in any way, if you're not present, it is hard to be vigilant. And as you expand this, Celebrate Recovery really expands this when they talk about, are you financially sober? Are you sober with your food? Are you doing sober things around screen time? Are you sober? Could be reading. There was a while where lunches didn't get made, kids didn't get taken care of because I was reading. So are you vigilant? Are you being present? That's a very different meaning than just drugs and alcohol. That brings a lot of us into the fold of, are you sober? So when we're looking at this, what does it mean what's the difference between being sober and living in sobriety? So we could stop doing actions. We could stop doing whatever it is that has been causing us to mood alter or shift. But have we really changed our lives? Have we really grown? Have we really changed? Have we moved forward? Now, often when you work a recovery process, you have to deal with the pain, the trauma, all the issues behind that to be able to stay in recovery. And the big book says, the AA big book says, that it is those that are unable to be honest with themselves that are the ones that never make it out. when we take that in a biblical context, we are looking at not just drugs and alcohol, but a deeper meaning that is moderation, self control, alertness, sound judgment, and moral conduct. So there could be plenty of people who are not under the influence of drugs and alcohol that still do not have moral conduct. I was watching, there's some social experiments going on, and they are on Instagram and Facebook, where they set up actors, and this one guy drops his wallet. Okay, he drops his wallet, and it's an actor, so he doesn't intentionally, and there's money in there. They've got a camera on this guy. He picks it up, he looks through it, and he takes the money. They come back to him and they say, "Hey, I dropped my wallet. Do you have it?" He's like, "No, I don't know anything about it." And then the guy comes out with the fact that this is a social experiment, and he says, um, "We have it on camera that you took it. We have it on camera that you're here." So that does not fit into the category of sober living, of being self-controlled, being alert, having sound judgment. The end of that story is a homeless guy sees him dropping his wallet, takes the wallet, and tracks him down and says, "Hey, you've dropped this wallet." This is a homeless guy, a guy who may be under the influence of alcohol or drugs, but his ability to see right and wrong, his ability to judge, his ability to come into alertness is even more so than the guy who says, "No, this is mine. You lost it. It's mine." And he didn't even say that. He just was in complete denial. So when we talk about living in sobriety, there's a lot more context to this than just not being under the influence of drugs or alcohol. So sobriety has many contexts to it: physical sobriety, mental sobriety, emotional sobriety, and spiritual sobriety. The Sober on Purpose podcast is all about that. There is a higher power, there is a God, and He loves you deeply and wants this life of joy and freedom for you. But if you keep turning away and turning to some other resource, food, shopping, overreading, it doesn't sound like it's possible, but it is. Anything that turns you away from the grace and glory that He has for you keeps you in a state of mood altering. So this is much bigger than drugs and alcohol. That's why I loved asking the question, because I'm getting a lot of feedback around drugs and alcohol, but it's much bigger than that. So there's huge benefits of being sober. And yes, that's a great place to start, of getting rid of the things that are causing your mind not to completely focus, not to completely be there. And it will build all these other things. But how are you going to live your life from there? I'm announcing this. We've been announcing it just kind of softly. In December, we are setting up for the Blessed Family Recovery Summit. The Blessed Family Recovery Summit is about living in sobriety, about the long-term advantages of a whole family dealing with whatever addictions are running through the family and whatever fallout that has caused for all of the other members in the family. So in that, we are also going to talk about a sobriety bottom. So there's a concept I bet you haven't heard, is after someone clears their body of drugs and alcohol, oftentimes they look around and say, "Why am I doing this?" Or they may have switched into something else instead of resolving whatever was causing them to turn to a resource in the first place. So sobriety bottom is one of the things we're going to talk about. We're also going to broaden this out into, it's not just about drugs and alcohol. There's a lot more to it. Pornography, all these other isms that we run to. What does that look like? And how can the whole family get well? So that's the Blessed Family Recovery Summit. We'd love for you to go ahead and sign up. I'll put a link below on how to get on the wait list for that. It's a completely free summit. Love to have you there. And that will be December 7th, 8, and 9. It is going to be recorded if you want to look at, and we're going to do a podcast format. So sobriety is much more than that. And often people say, "Hey, uh, I'm not much fun when I'm not doing this, that, or the other," or "I don't know how to live my life without turning to food or without turning to work." I mean, work can be just as all-consuming without turning to a relationship or sex addiction or something like that. But here's where we're separating out not just getting sober, but living in sobriety. It's just a totally different thing. Today, I'm going to do something that I haven't done in a little while. Today, we're going to uh, look at what sober curious means. So, sober curious is a term that we toss around. And again, I've got this picture of this nice little drink out there. And that's what we think about is if you're trying to stop alcohol, if you're trying to stop some kind of substance, we think about sober curious. And that is what we're going to talk about today at 11:10 Mountain Time or 1:10 Eastern Time. I've invited the lovely Maggie Clausen. She is running the Sober Summit. That is happening just shortly. I mean, it's going to go off, not this weekend, but next weekend. Love to have you there for that. Again, a free summit. And this is about how you manage yourself through the holidays. Now, she's going to have a lot of people there, including people pleasers, folks who are dealing with sugar, other folks who are dealing with relationship. It is not just about drugs and alcohol, but why this freedom sets you up to really begin to live your life. So, sober curious. When we're at the stage of curious about anything, we're in not the pre-contemplation stage, but we're in the contemplation stage of change. And that's why this change model is so important. And we use this in recovery as pre-contemplation is where somebody is not even thinking about the possibility of change. It hasn't crossed their radar. They're doing what they're doing. It seems to be working and they're fine, or it's completely underground and nobody knows about it. So they're just going on as they're going on. But when you get to the curious part, that's what sober curious really means is I'm curious. I'm contemplating what my life would look like without this. You're in this red phase, and you have to be in this red phase before you even head to preparation. So those of you who are loving on people who are struggling, if you're struggling yourself, I invite you to join us here this afternoon or mid-morning for those of us in Mountain Time is what does it really look like? What does sober really look like? How does it? Maggie has this wonderful story, and she doesn't identify as a person with an addiction. She chose to do some behaviors that were no longer serving her. And her body said, and her mind said, this is not something I want to do. So listening to her story is super powerful in the fact that we don't have to really hit rock bottom before we decide we can make a change. There's a lot of opportunity to change before we get there. So join us for this bonus today, because I think you will be really surprised on Sober Curious, what it looked like for her to change her behavior patterns. She didn't go to a 12-step. She didn't go to recovery. She wouldn't identify as an addict, but there were some significant changes that she made in her life that affected the whole dynamic of her family and led her to set up the Sober Summit, which I invite you to join. I'm going to drop a link for that. That's another free conference. You will find so much there, especially right before the holidays. If you are working on everything from sugar to how you're going to show up on the holidays to if you would like to quit anything in your life, these folks are really talking about how to live in sobriety. So I'm looking forward to seeing you there. And I will there's a link it's going to be on all these channels, so you can just join us there. But there is also a link for her summit that I'm going to add in here. Click on that. If you can't join that day, you can select what speakers you want to listen to. Again, the people pleaser, Nick Pollard is going to be there. Mike Collins from That Sugar-Free Guy is going to be there. There's going to be a conversation about the psychology of addiction. There's so much for all of us to learn, and it's completely free. So I'd love to have you show up and be there. But today, show up this afternoon or early midday and learn more about it. It will be posted on this channel. And thank you for being here. Again, I'm Tanya with the Sober on Purpose podcast. Hop over there on your favorite podcast platform, and we will see you later on today. Oh, I want to remind you of this statement. This is from Mr. Kelly Cole. You don't have to get it right. You just have to get it going on. And that's what we did this morning. So find something in your day that you have been procrastinating. You don't have to get it right. You just have to get it going on. Because if you don't get it going on, you don't even get the start in the future. So looking forward to seeing you later on today.